What is up, everyone? Today I'm going to be going through every single Call of Duty Zombies mode and saying the worst thing about each individual mode. I did the same thing but for the Call of Duty multiplayers, and we're going to do it for zombies. If you want to see me do the same video but for the best thing about every Call of Duty Zombies mode, let me know down in the comment section below, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. World at War was honestly a tough one because, of course, the thing that I want to say is that it's just way too bare bones. There's like nothing to do on the maps. They're very boring. It's not really fair to say that because it is the first zombies mode, so although that is a negative about the mode, I don't really think I want to say that's the worst thing about it, because what else did we expect? I mean, back in 2008, I didn't really care when I was playing zombies back in 2008. I thought this stuff was amazing. I didn't really need a bunch of Easter eggs and stuff because I didn't even know Easter eggs could exist at that point. But then once we started getting main quests and stuff and side quests, then I started realizing, yeah, the stuff we had back in World at War was kind of whack. But again, not really fair to say that, so instead, I'm going to say the worst thing about World at War is how clunky some of the mechanics are. Like, for example, knifing. When you knife a zombie in World at War, you're basically guaranteed death because you'll lunge right into that zombie and that zombie will double swipe you and you'll be done for. A lot of clunky mechanics like that, just trying to train zombies, and the mechanics usually don't work all that well. I mean, that also is because it's a much older Call of Duty game, but yeah, I'm just going to go with that. For Black Ops 1, I'm going to go with the boss zombies being some of the most obnoxious special enemies in the entirety of zombies history. Some of them I love. I love the dogs, of course. I love George. But the monkeys on Ascension especially, I think, are really obnoxious. Anything that steals your perks is just not fun, so that also goes for the astronaut on Moon. The fact that he can just steal your perks just by like headbutting you when you come around a corner and you don't even know it's coming, not very fun. The Nova Crawlers on Kino, 5, and Moon all can just go fuck themselves. I have never liked Nova Crawlers and I never will. And even the Pentagon Thief, never been a big fan of him. I don't really think any boss should be able to steal your weapon. I mean, that just seems a little ridiculous. But George and the dogs I liked, but like I said, those other bosses kind of ruined some of those maps for me, at least some parts of those maps for me, and I'm just not a fan of those bosses. There's a lot of things about Black Ops 2 that I didn't really like for the zombies mode, but a lot of the things were also just like new things they were trying, and I can't really knock them for trying new things. It didn't really get in the way of other things. Like, for example, the leveling up system. They started to try to introduce this level up system where you had like these ranks. The ranking system just made no sense. It was really stupid. I think just the normal prestiges and stuff that they did with Black Ops 3 was much, much better. But at least they tried something, so I'm not going to say they're like, that's a negative for the game because of that, but I do think that's a little weird. And, you know, they tried like grief mode and stuff, and I thought that was cool that they tried it. I just didn't think it was implemented the best. But I think the thing I can say that's the worst about this game is honestly just the first half of the life cycle of this game. For zombies, that is. You have Transit, Nuketown, and Die Rise. That is the content we had for the first like 5 to 6 months of Black Ops 2, and that was rough. Not a lot of good maps there. I mean, of course, you had some survival maps like Town, Busty Boat, and Farm, but they weren't really playable enough to the point where I felt like this was a good experience. Thankfully, Black Ops 2 was saved with Mob of the Dead, Buried, and Origins. Those maps are fantastic, some of the best maps of all time, but that first half of the game's life cycle, some really bad content there. Honestly, Advanced Warfare, Exozombies, I could probably think of a million awful things about this mode. I can go on and on. But I think the one thing that ruins it more than anything is the EMZs. Not even all the other boss zombies. There's some another, you know, a couple annoying boss zombies in this, but like the EMZs are just atrocious, man. Like, these guys ruin any round past like round 8 or 10 even. Like, it's just once you get past round 10, you're just like, oh my god, every 5 seconds you're getting EMZ'd, and then your exosuit doesn't work, and then you're like, oh my god, my screen is all, you know, electric and stuff. It's so bad. Like, I hate a lot of things about Exozombies, but I think that's the #1 thing that is just the most aggravating about every single one of those maps. Don't know who designed that, but you should be fired. Simple as that. I love Black Ops 3, so there's not a lot of things I could really say that I don't like about it, but the one thing that I can definitely think of is the lack of game modes. Now, obviously, when you play custom zombies, it doesn't really matter anymore, but just speaking of the main game on console without custom zombies, there's not a lot to do other than just play the main maps. Now, the main maps that are there are fantastic. You know, if the maps in this game weren't good, it would be not a good Call of Duty, obviously, but like, I love playing these maps because they're really good maps, but you only can play the maps in just standard survival. It's one of the only CODs to just not have any other options for game modes. Black Ops 2, which came out before this, had the survival modes and the grief mode and turned even, which wasn't that great, but it was still there. There was even difficulty options in Black Ops 2. Black Ops 3 didn't have any of that. It was just play the map and use whatever gobblegums you want, and that's it. And I love the maps, it's great, but it would have been nice to see grief mode, it would have been nice to see difficulty levels, or even some early version of custom mutations at least being introduced, which was later furthered into Black Ops 4. I would have liked something more. I feel like Black Ops 3 definitely could have used more game modes. Maybe they could have cut off little sections of some of the maps. I've always thought of Garad Krovi's Pack-a-Punch area. Why couldn't that be like a separate survival map just for fun? Why not let people play that? I don't know. Extra content's good, right? You could have cut off different sections of the Shadows of Evil districts and made those separate survival maps that you can play grief on. They could have had some gun game, versus mode or something. They could have done so much more with Black Ops 3, and unfortunately they didn't. Not a lot of negatives I can say about Infinite Warfare either, but the one thing I can definitely think of is the zombie training is a little bit clunky. I think the training in this is probably some of the worst we've seen, and I don't really know why that is, and I don't really find myself ever training in Infinite Warfare because of this. I tend to just camp or play just, by running around the whole map, the whole game anyways. Like, trying to train zombies in Infinite Warfare is just really strange. The way the zombies kind of function, they kind of go out of order a little bit, and they're not like trying to, they don't stay stationary in like a, normal pattern that you can kind of predict. They kind of are unpredictable, and that might have been on purpose to make it a little bit harder, but it gets kind of annoying, especially when you get cut off at weird angles that you didn't expect to get cut off at, and it gets a little bit clunky with how they hit you sometimes. But again, that's really not a big deal because the rest of the mode is just fantastic, so I don't really care that much. My biggest issue with World War II Zombies has to be the lack of diversity between the maps. And what I mean by that is the maps feel the same. Like, I don't feel that different playing one of the maps as the others. Like, they kind of have very similar color palettes. They have the same soundtracks. Like, besides like a couple sound pieces here and there, the music is mostly the same. So the feel of the map is very similar. Now, I did hear from Cameron Dayton that this was actually intentional because they didn't want it to feel like they were very separate experiences. They wanted to feel like, chapters of a story, which I guess I understand, but like, that's just not what I like in a zombies game. I like when each map feels very different, like you saw Black Ops 3, Infinite Warfare, Black Ops 4. All the maps feel so different, very different themes, very different music, but World War II, I mean, they kind of had the same feel to all of them. Even some of the features kind of carried over, and I don't know, they didn't feel that different. And so that kind of ruined some of the parts of the game to me. Like, yeah, they're different locations. Generally speaking, the story's obviously different. Easter eggs are obviously different. There's some new wonder weapons here and there, but for the most part, they kind of feel the same. And I don't know, I don't like that much. For Black Ops 4, you might be thinking, oh, he's going to say the perk system or something like that, but honestly, no. The perk system I don't love, but I kind of grew to understand the purpose of it, and I don't think it ruins the game. I don't think it's that terrible. I just would have preferred a different perk system, but I don't think it's the worst thing. I think people kind of over-exaggerate that whole situation. The worst thing about Black Ops 4 to me is actually the weapon balance. Now, I would say the reason for the weapon balance being so bad is mainly because of the point system. Because of the point system, tons of guns in this game are worthless. They had the same point system in Cold War, but they kind of fixed this weapon balance problem because they made the different weapon varieties for all the different guns, so at least you had all the guns having some decent variants of them, and in Black Ops 4 they just didn't have that, so you kind of had the situation where you had no reason to use any gun other than the MOG 12 or the Hylian Salvo or like the wonder weapons. Like, you had no reason to use a lot of the pistols, a lot of the SMGs, even a lot of the sniper rifles, even the LMGs. Like, what was the point? Just use the best two guns in the game. They'll give you the same amount of points as anything else, and they'll just kill faster. You just want to get the best weapons. That's all you care about. So weapon balance was just not good here. I felt like every game I was using the MOG 12, the Hylian Salvo, sometimes the Spitfire, or the wonder weapons. I don't think I touched like any other guns. The only reason I touch other guns is just if I wanted to just mess around with them and level up some, attachments and stuff, but most of the other guns got really weak really quickly, so weapon balance was just not very good, man, not very good. For Cold War Zombies, I'm gonna say the worst thing is the lack of things to do on the maps themselves. I was really disappointed with the maps not having a lot of side quests and having really short, not very thought-provoking Easter eggs. That was probably my least favorite thing about Cold War, the thing I complained about the most. We go from Black Ops 3, Infinite Warfare, Black Ops 4, where we have these really expansive maps with tons of side quests, tons of features, tons of in-depth story things within the Easter egg, and I feel like Cold War just didn't have that. You had intel, you had a couple side quests, And you had the Easter egg, which usually was a really short Easter egg that my grandma could probably do with her eyes closed. So yeah, the maps just got really boring really fast for me, and I felt like the only players who were really satisfied with this game were people who only liked story and didn't really care that much for the gameplay, or just really liked grinding weapons and doing high round stuff. But I just wasn't that type of player. I like Easter eggs. I like having fun. I like speedrunning even sometimes. I don't really, I'm not like competitive with it, but I like trying it at least. And there was just no motivation to do it in this game because the Easter eggs were just so easy, to the point where the maps didn't have any just thought-provoking steps to them. And there just wasn't much content to do on replay. So like if I played a map more than once, I just didn't feel like there was much I can do on the map that I haven't already done. I feel like I've done everything on all these maps within like 2 days of the map coming out. And that's not good. There's some maps in Black Ops 4 where I still haven't done everything on the map. There's some side quests I have yet to do on some of those maps. But Cold War, no, I did everything within 2 days because that's just how simple these maps are, and I just didn't like that. And as for Vanguard Zombies, I would say the worst thing about it is pretty much everything.